When you think about a giant of history like Confucius, how do you even begin to grasp who he really was? Sure, you could read a bunch of textbooks. Or we could do something way more interesting. We could see him through the eyes of the person who arguably knew him best, his most devoted student, Yan Hui. So let's do that. We're going to set aside the dry historical facts and instead experience the master through the personal and honestly awe-filled memories of his greatest disciple.
So, listen to these words from Yan Hui. They just perfectly capture this profound sense of wonder we're going to explore. This isn't just a simple compliment, right? It's a description of a wisdom so huge and almost shifty that it feels like you can never quite grab it, but it inspires you to try anyway. These words are going to be our guide as we piece together the moments that made Confucius, the master, so absolutely extraordinary.
So where does this feeling of awe even come from? Well, for Yan Hui, the master's wisdom wasn't just in his big lectures or his brilliant sayings. No, it was in his very character, a kind of quiet discipline you could see every single day. In fact, he was famously defined not by the things he did, but by the things he was completely free from. Specifically, 4 things.
That's it. That's the line from the ancient texts. Simple, but so powerful. Just 4 things that he totally and completely eliminated from his life. So what were they? Let's dive in, because these 4 principles are really the foundation of his entire character.
Think of these as a kind of total mental freedom. First, no preconceptions. This meant he approached every single person and situation with a completely open mind. Next, no insistence. He didn't try to force things to happen his way. Then there's no stubbornness, which meant he was flexible, not rigid in his thinking. And finally, and this is the big one, no ego. He was free from that self-centered voice that clouds all of our judgment. This wasn't just a to-do list, it was his way of being.
Now, this inner discipline didn't make him some kind of passive bystander. Oh no, quite the opposite. It gave him this unshakable sense of purpose. And this conviction, it was put to the ultimate test when he and his followers were ambushed and surrounded by a hostile mob in the state of Guang. I mean, their lives were on the line, and the master was apparently just completely calm.
Wow, can you just feel the sheer weight of that statement? In a moment of absolute life or death danger, he's not thinking about himself. He sees himself as the living, breathing vessel for civilization itself. He truly believed that the culture of the ancient sages, the very heart of society, was on his shoulders to protect.
And this just brilliantly shows his mindset. It is so crucial to understand this. This is not arrogance. It's absolute faith. His thinking was, if my mission is protected by heaven, then what power does a random mob really have against me? It was this unwavering belief in a higher purpose that made him fearless, even when staring death right in the face. But here's the thing that must have just fascinated his students. Here is the central paradox of the man. This guy who felt he was carrying the entire weight of civilization was at the exact same time profoundly humble. There was this huge gap between how the world saw him and how he saw himself.
This exchange just says it all. You have an official who is completely blown away by his abilities, basically calling him a godlike genius. And what's the master's reply? It's incredible. He basically says, I'm not a genius, I was just poor. I had to learn how to do a lot of basic stuff just to survive. He chalked up his incredible knowledge not to some divine gift, but to the simple struggles of his youth.
So you have to wonder, how did it actually feel to be a student of this incredible paradoxical man? And this brings us right back to Yan Hui's personal experience. He explains that the master had this really unique way of teaching. He would expand their minds with all this literature and history, but at the same time, he'd rein them in with etiquette and ritual. It was this perfect balance that made the whole journey of learning just completely captivating and totally impossible to give up on.
And here we are, full circle, back at this final, awe-struck admission. This is the ultimate feeling the master inspired. Yan Hui is saying, look, I give it everything I have. I push myself to my absolute limit. And just when I think I've got it, I look up and I realize the master is still so far ahead, on a level that seems impossibly high. But here's the key. This wasn't discouraging. It was the ultimate inspiration. A standard so high, so pure, you just had to keep striving for it.
Okay, but for all this talk about these lofty, unreachable peaks of wisdom, the master left us with one final and really crucial thought. It's a little reminder that this great path, the one that's so amazed his students, well, it might not be quite as far away as it seems.
And there it is. The
The master's final lesson isn't some complicated answer. It's a question that he turns back on all of us. The path to wisdom, that peak that Yan Hui saw as so impossibly high, it isn't something you find on some distant mountain. It begins in the one place you always have access to, your own mind. The journey starts the moment you decide to truly think. So, how can it be far away?